How do we know that monsters are scary? It could be the eerie music or the dim lighting. However, odds are you can tell something is scary just by looking at it. It's completely natural to be afraid of snakes, spiders, and heights because those have been killing us for generations. But why monsters? The last time I checked the stats, Godzilla has never killed a real person. Yet I can't help but feel a sense of dread each time I watch this scene. So let's have a little chat about character design. In gacha games, of course. Humans have, intentionally or not, given meaning to almost everything around us. We just can't help but notice patterns and read into them. Purple is just a color, but due to how expensive real-life purple dye was for centuries, it became synonymous with nobility and royalty. On the topic of royals, lions are the kings of the jungle, so characters associated with them are often fierce and strong leaders. This is an isekai protagonist, this is a tsundere, and this was a mistake. In this world where everything can become loaded with meaning, it's important to remember that characters are not born, they're made. Everything about a character's physical appearance, from their hairstyle and clothes to their facial expression and color palette, was a choice made by an artist. Believe it or not, Calcit did not just wake up in a vomit green onesie, someone made the choice to do that to her. And it's here that I'll mention that character design is an art, not a science, meaning that it is ultimately subjective. That being said, you can still make arguments that certain aspects of a character's design do or do not efficiently convey what the character is about. For an example, let's go back to the King of Monsters. The first thing that stands out in all of his designs is that he looks like a dinosaur, but one that has been twisted or mutated. The original design for Godzilla had very thick and rough skin. This wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was specifically inspired by the keloid scars that were often found on victims from Hiroshima. Very fitting then for a monster that is supposed to be the incarnation of Japanese fears about the atomic bomb after World War II. And this, at least artistically speaking, is what a character design is ultimately supposed to do. One picture could be all you need to understand the core ideas of a character. A good relationship between visuals and the character can really help sell a power fantasy. Really helps you feel like Spider-Man, or Ergot if that's your type of thing. So to answer my initial question, monsters are scary even if they don't exist because they remind us of things that do. Not just creepy crawlies and predators, mind you. Anything that our society is afraid of can become a monster. That concludes my TED Talk on character design. I could end the video here, but I think it would be a good idea to give an example of how this works with a character my audience probably knows. So now we get to the fun part, where I get to call your waifu shit. So who is this anyway? If a design is supposed to efficiently convey the core ideas of a character, then we need some shared understanding of those ideas. So let me do my best Kaiser impression. Hi, honey. Such a stupid joke. Zumama is the leader of a tribe known as Eunectes, located deep within the jungles of Sargon. While the inhabitants of Sargon usually champion strength and tradition above all, Zumama is much more of a thinker than a fighter. Due to her high intelligence and years of research, she has a very deep understanding of robotics and engineering. Enough of an understanding to build a giant mech in the jungle with only scraps and primitive tools. It's this deep love or borderline obsession with technology that really drives the character. While inside of Sargon, she plays direct foil to her childhood friend Gabrielle, who is quoted to be the embodiment of tradition. Once we convince her to join Rhode Islands with us, we can see that despite all of her genius, she's held back by a lack of understanding of most of the modern world. So in summary, Eunectes is a leader. She is highly intelligent and an engineer. However, her intellect was very limited by her primitive environment. So, how much of that can you tell from her design alone? Well, a decent amount actually. The multitude of gadgets and trinkets that hang off of her do a lot of the heavy lifting of the design. In particular, I really like how you can tell that she's made a lot of this stuff from random things that she's found in the jungle and jammed together. Another thing I like is that while her body doesn't have any scars, her tail has several marks and band-aids, either hinting that she gets into fights on a regular basis or that her experiments don't always go according to plan, both of which are plausible. While I have some criticisms related to it later, her clothes make some amount of sense. They look almost as cobbled together as her weapons do, and her not wearing much cloth does make sense for a person living deep in the jungle. It's not exactly part of her character's design, but the environments in the E2 art also do a really good job at matching the character. Now with all that being said, I have two important questions. Why is she a snake, and why is that snake so damn thick? Let's start with the less controversial topic. I think making Eunectes a python makes very little sense. Out of all symbolism, animal symbolism is some of the strongest and most consistent. Lions are royal, ox are stubborn, crows are conniving, and snakes, well, snakes are just evil. Snakes are very often a representation of deceit, betrayal, or sin. You can probably thank Christianity for a lot of those associations, going back all the way to the Garden of Eden. But many myths from around the world have featured snakes and serpents as antagonists. In Norse mythology, the world serpent Jormungandr was often the antagonist to the hero Thor, and it was none other than a snake that stole Gilgamesh's immortality. Leviathan, Tiamat, Medusa, and Hydras. None of these are known for intelligence or engineering. I mean, snakes don't have hands. How could they build a mech?
It just works.
Moving on, why is Eunectes so hot? And don't just pretend like she's a little sexualized. She is in the competition for the thickest thighs in the game. Now, there is nothing inherently wrong about a character being sexy, but if that's the first thing that most straight males and gay women are going to notice about your design, then it should probably have something to do with your character. Evelynn from League of Legends and Widowmaker from Overwatch are both purple seductresses. It would make less sense for these characters to be moderately clothed because they are trying to seduce you. But what about Eunectes' character has anything to do with promiscuity or sex appeal? Go ahead and dig through the lore. I'll wait. Rant over, let's go back to being constructive for a bit. In terms of animals, I think that there are a couple of choices that make a lot more sense. Animals such as owls or beavers are way better symbols for wisdom or engineering respectively. But if they wanted to stick to a reptile because she was from Sargon, then why not a tortoise? Tortoises have long since been symbols for wisdom due to their long lifespans. Making her a tortoise also opens up some interesting story ideas. Maybe, as a member of a slow and offensively weak race, Eunectes felt like an outcast within her own tribe. If you really wanted to go far with this idea, you could give her a prosthetic limb, perhaps an injury caused by being pushed too far as a child in a warrior culture. If Gaviel is a representation of all the good that kind of culture can do, then having her foil have a literal scar caused by Sargon's worship of physical strength would emphasize that idea. Now, in terms of her being hot, let me give you an amazing tip. Women can be hot and not have the most boring female body type imaginable. Brigitte and Lady D's SFM numbers are proof of that. Since she's working with heavy machinery all day, you could lean into the buff mommy archetype, giving her a toned body and possibly scars. Proof that she was raised in a rough environment and is used to manual labor. If you don't like that direction, you could swing in the complete opposite one and go full Jinx. Make her lanky and give her noodle arms, emphasizing her snake-like aspects while at the same time showing that her strongest asset is not her body, but her mind. Some friendly reminders before you finish posting that comment. Art is subjective. My channel name is Dio's Opinions, and this has just been one of them. Also, it's not like I don't understand why Eunectes' design is the way it is. Companies ultimately need to make money. League and Overwatch mostly make their money from skins, where Arknights mostly makes its money from selling the characters. And if there's one thing that humanity has learned over time, it's that sex sells. Character design be damned. And lastly, as a reminder, I think Eunectes' design is ultimately fine. There are some big missed opportunities in my eyes, but you can still tell what type of character she is at a glance. Though all of you Eunectes stans can take solace in knowing that she is definitely not the worst design in Arknights. The worst design in Arknights. The worst design in Arknights. The worst design.